there. Welcome to another segment of Gamestorming.
Hello.
So what are we talking about today, Jonathan?
All right, so as a game designer, what happens a lot is that people come up to me and say, where do you think of all those games? How do you get your ideas? Where do you get your ideas from? So what I wanted to talk about was, well, typically people expect one answer. Oh, I get inspiration from my dreams. I get inspiration from the little canary that talks to my window or whatever, right?
I get mine from a catalog based out of New Jersey.
Edmund Scientific?
Yes.
Woo! And so there's a lot of different sources of inspiration for games, and I want to discuss a few of them today.
So what have you got?
Ooh, so first one I want to talk about is mechanics, right? You think of something really cool and you say, ooh, I've got this really neat idea where you take, say, 2d6 and a bag of beads, and you roll the dice and you draw out that many beads, and then stuff happens, right?
Would this tie into, for example, like the new Roman die that people have found, or technically the fairly old Roman die that people have found that you can now get a copy of on the internet?
So close, actually. So that actually jumps ahead to another one.
Oh, sorry.
Props. No, that's all right.
Okay.
That's great. So a prop, right? You find a great prop, and you're like, ooh, I want to make a game based on this, right? And so there's this, it's the most ancient.
The oldest D20.
Yeah, it's the oldest D20 on the planet, and it's got this Cyrillic marking. It's like Cyrillic Greek. It's all kind of weird. And this company was trying to license the right to manufacture it, and it didn't succeed.
Oh, I thought that,
So this guy looked at the pictures of it really, really carefully and said, I don't understand. They say it's the Greek alphabet with 4 letters missing, but these letters aren't Greek at all. And they really did their research. It's a company that makes their money making custom.
So someone is making the...
Yeah, I might have spent $45 on it.
I think that's an excellent investment myself. I approve.
And I'm totally going to make a game based on it because it's an awesome prop.
So back to mechanics, though.
Back to mechanics. So mechanics, here's a great one, is that on my website, invisible-city.com, I've got a bunch of checkers variants. And so I said, hey, there's checkers, and everybody knows how to play with it. Let's make it more interesting.
Okay.
And so there's a bunch of different things. There's one where each person at the start of the game, they get a character. And so I've got different sets based on different web comics, Sluggy Freelance, Schlock Mercenary, and so on and so forth. And so each person has a special power.
Can you make them fight?
Well, that's exactly, it's kind of the who would win in a battle, this character versus this character. And so it would be very easy, for example, to license a superhero chain, right? And say, one person's playing checkers as the Flash and the other one's playing checkers as Spider-Man. And
Oh, sorry, my mind is already like, so this is how the Flash would move, and this is how Spider-Man would move.
see, this is it, is that, and now I'm cheating a little bit, right? Because I'm saying that I use mechanics, but there, what we're hitting is another one, which was theme. Theme is a great inspiration. You say, all right, so mechanically, we're going to use checkers as a framework, but thematically, we're going to make it superhero checkers.
Woohoo!
Marvel versus DC, fight!
Now, here's the problem with that. I've seen a ton of really just crap-tastic games in Target that are all just like, yeah, we're going to do every version of Monopoly that's ever come out, for example. The theme Monopolies, just stop already.
So it's funny, right? Because what you're doing there, and this ties back, you should go back and check some of my old videos, specifically the one where I talk about metaphysical integrity. Anyway, but that's seriously it, right? Is what you've got going on there is they've got a mechanical system, Monopoly, and we're going to just slap a theme on it. And, you instead of Park Place, you're buying Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Makes me feel bad. But that's the point, though, is that that's craptacular. But instead, if you said, hey, we're going to try and, make a game about, Marvel versus DC, and sure, take Monopoly, but then extrapolate and
Yeah, you could still have them fighting in a city environment because they're very urban characters and things like that.
And you could
but you'd have to start building from scratch and not building from Monopoly.
Well, for example, if Monopoly, you see what's happening here is my brain's going.
The point of inspiration,
you
actually.
buy these properties. The properties aren't properties. You're actually kind of like buying time with that particular hero. And so then you assemble your team, and you have got these different teams. And sure, if you buy all the Avengers, then that's more effective than, say, buying a little bit of the Avengers and a little bit of Fantastic Four and a little bit of,
I would totally buy Squirrel Girl.
There you go.
I'm just saying.
Well, Squirrel Girl did beat Dr. Doom.
It's true.
Everybody beats Dr. Doom. That's so sad.
So what else have we got?
All right. Purpose. Purpose is one of my favorite. Purpose and message. And that's a little bit different, right? So message, you're trying to you're trying to convey a specific idea, right?
Okay.
Whereas purpose might be build a game to teach basic math concepts to kindergarten through 2nd grade.
Now, the problem with a lot of purpose-based games, in my opinion, is they're really lame. They don't tend to be that interesting.
Yes. That's because people are, no, let's try that again. That's because a lot of designers don't really take a look at the opportunity that's being afforded to them.
Okay.
Right? Earlier, before the show, we had this great conversation about sources of inspiration and how having restrictions on what you're allowed to
Yes.
make can actually cause more creative behavior. Somebody gives you a lump of clay and says, make something.
What?
Make a tool that aliens would use.
Oh, yeah.
And there you go, right? So similarly, I worked for a small instructional design company, and we had to make games to teach math concepts to kindergarten through second grade and sixth graders. And they did a beautiful job of getting a team of educators who were off duty, out of school for the summer, off-duty educators, and
Makes it
artists
sound
and
like
game
I've got
designers.
a badge and a stick of chalk here.
But it was an awesome team, and they said, all right, make stuff. And the thing I hate the most are math blaster games. Little alien ships coming down. 8 plus 2.
Yeah, oh, I remember
10,
those.
right? That's a bad game because the math is not integrated with the metaphysical
You know
purpose
two games that I
universe.
think are great math games?
Sure.
One, Magic the Gathering. You have to learn a lot of math to be able to do well at
Tons of-
Magic.
There's variables in there.
And two, and I make fun of it all the time, but it's out of love, folks. Out of love. EVE Online. Seriously,
Oh my
you
goodness.
should be able to get at least a
Spreadsheet,
101
the MMO.
accounting class from doing EVE Online, and you
Absolutely true.
deserve it. And these are games people play not because they're like, yes, those accounting skills have to be used. They play it because big spaceships, let's blow things up. It's
Darn skippy.
awesome.
Pretty
But
much
you can
any
teach
role-playing
things-
game is also a
Oh,
fantastic
yeah,
math game, too.
yeah.
But I'm sorry, please continue.
No, the point is you can make them, like if you start with purpose, go ask what you would actually want to play and then find a way to cram that purpose into it instead of starting with the purpose and then cramming something on top of it.
So typically when I've got a thing that's supposed to teach a math concept, what I do is I integrate that math concept into an integral mechanic such as movement or a conflict resolution, and then just build an entirely different game out from that, right?
And I bet that makes a lot more playable.
The best design I ever did was to teach children how to read pie graphs and the idea of probabilities. And so I made this game where there was a spinner in the corner, and it was divided so that it was 10%, 20%, 30%, and 40%. 10 plus 20 plus 30 plus 40. Yes, that's 100%. So had like a rattlesnake, a skull, a cactus, and a scorpion on it. And there was this big grid, and they started in one corner and had to get to a safe town in the upper corner, and every square had one of those icons on it. Every time you stepped into a space, the spinner would spin, and if it landed on that thing, you lost a little water.
Okay.
Right? And so you could either take like just a straight line, boom, right? But it was algorithmically designed so that the harder things would be on the obvious straight
Yeah.
path. And so it was making this dynamic maze where the kids could just be like, bup, 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 why do I keep dying? Bup, bup, why do I keep dying, right? Because you're hitting all the rattlesnakes, kid. And it just teaches them. They learn, oh, this is bigger, therefore it's more likely to land on that, therefore it's dangerous, I should stay away from it. The client was really, really happy with that. And I still to date, that's one of my favorite games I ever did.
That sounds awesome.
Purpose oriented,
Yeah.
right? And again, you're not looking at these charts and saying, which one of these represents 40%? Instead, the kid learns it because they want to do as well as or better than their compatriots.
So what else have we got after purpose and message?
So message, well, I'd like to talk a little bit about
Yeah,
message.
oh, please.
So one of my favorite games that I did on Invisible City is a game called Run Hamster Run. In Run Hamster Run, you're a hamster on a conveyor belt that leads to a pit full of hungry alligators. You and all the other players are these hamsters, and as the game goes on, the conveyor belt goes faster and faster. So you've got one choice, which is that you can go ahead and try and run faster than all the other hamsters. But eventually you're going to get tired, and you're going to have to take a break, and eventually you'll fall into the pit full of alligators,
Okay.
right? But what works a lot better is if the other hamsters happen to accidentally kind of get pushed in to that pit beforehand. And it's this really awful cutthroat game, but the entire message behind it is that I
Don't
was
be a
thinking
hamster.
about animal testing. If you're an animal and you're being exposed to animal testing, what's that like? It's some kind of Kafka-esque hell. It really is. Imagine being a rabbit that's periodically taken out of this cage, which is barely large enough for you to live in, and people squirt things in your eye, right? And it hurts, and it doesn't make any sense.
and
for
all
the-
of your rabbit friends eventually go away.
And this is my point, is that Run Hamster Run, I got a letter from parents that play it with their kids, and it became a saying in their house. Run, hamster, run. Anytime somebody was in jeopardy, run, hamster, run. And if on some level that little kind of subversive anti-animal testing message is getting through, then I'm winning and I'm using my powers for good and not for evil.
Okay.
So, mechanics, theme. Oh, theme, I didn't even touch on that. So theme,
Yes.
you were talking about Monopoly and things like that. So a theme is a thing like, I've got a game called Psycho Killer, where it's a one versus many.
I wonder what it's about.
So you'd be the Psycho Killer.
Of course I would.
Hypothetically. And you've got secrets. You know where your secret hideout is and what the weapon that can kill you is and what the thing that your soul is hiding in is. And you've got all this information kind of hidden. And then the rest of us, we're victims. And the rest of us are victims, and we're trying to find out these secrets and discover these before you slowly track us down and kill us.
Of course.
And so my objective was to make a game that conveyed the idea of that story, that classic horror story. And then once I had that idea, then I went ahead and made all the mechanics and
That
stuff.
sounds like a lot more fun than Clue.
I have another one where I said, Clue makes no sense because if you're the murderer, if I'm Colonel Mustard, and the clue says Colonel Mustard in the study with the lead pipe, at the beginning of the game, why do I not know that I did this? Did I accidentally hit myself in the head and now I've got amnesia? And I can still win the game if I go, haha, I figured it out. It was Colonel Mustard in the study with the lead. Doesn't make any sense. So I made this game called Haunted, where everybody kind of has amnesia and you try and figure out more about yourself, but it's easier to learn about other people. But at the end, if you realize, oh, wait a minute, I'm the murderer, then the game totally shifts and your goal is to kill everybody else.
So we've got to wrap up pretty quickly here.
Yes,
What else
do.
have we got?
Last one is Gamestorming, which is a lot like what's going on here, which is that you get together with other people, you're like, hey, let's make up a game. And there's some really neat structures that can be used to Gamestorm. And had I realized that today was going to be a 12-minute segment, totally would have made a game on the spot here. So on a future
We'll do
session,
that another time.
totally going to get Chris-Rachael and Gavin and maybe a few other people in the crew up here, and we're going to make a game in 10 minutes.
Which can totally be done. I'm actually going to be on a podcast about that on Sunday. But the point is, all these are aspects of creativity. If you go into something and you say, I don't know, I have to make a game, that's actually, believe it or not, very limiting because you've got too many options. A lot of creativity is about focus, narrowing things down. So if you go through his list there and be like, all right, I need to worry about the mechanics, the theme, the purpose, the message, the props, that's going to help you a lot. And you don't have to do all of them. You can just pick one. You can start with the whole, like, okay, I really want to make, like you said, with the psycho killer thing. I like Hannibal. I've got to make something about Hannibal and cannibals. Okay, that already is helping you out. Then you go through the rest of the list. Hannibal and cannibals. Okay, we've got our theme. Oh, the purpose of it is people should eat more flesh. And the message of it is I'm a horrible human being. Oh, let's worry about the mechanics now.
There you go. Ta-da! One last quick thing.
Yes, please.
Next weekend, I'm going to be running a convention here in Austin, Protospiel South, and it's a board game designers convention. We're going to have a bunch of game designers, and we're just going to be playing each other's games, and it's going to be awesome.
And can people come in that are not game designers and just play wacky new things?
Darn Skippy.
And this is also a great chance to get in there, not only to throw a cog in the wheel and whatnot with a lot of game designers, but also get an idea how some of these people think. If you think about game design yourself, if you've watched some of his segments and thought, I could do this, get in there and see what everybody else that's not published yet is doing.
Yep.